Have you ever had the feeling that you are walking in darkness without being sure where you are going? Perhaps you feel that your steps are uncertain, that your decisions are clouded by the expectations of others. Let me ask you, when was the last time you felt absolute clarity about who you are and what you really want from this life? Carl Jung, one of the most profound thinkers in modern psychology, discovered a fundamental truth that few have the courage to face. When your mental clarity is pure, when you truly understand who you are and what you want, your path illuminates as if a powerful light guides each of your steps. The world we live in is designed to keep us confused. Social media, the news, the opinions of family, friends and strangers all conspire to pull us away from our deepest truth. Jung understood perfectly. This confusion is not accidental. It is the result of living disconnected from our inner being, from what he called the self or the true self. Think for a moment how many of your recent decisions were actually yours, and how many were influenced by the fear of disappointing others, because of the need to fit in or simply because it is what is expected of you. Jung warned us that every time we ignore our inner voice to please others, we are turning off our own light, darkening the path that we should follow. The clarity that Jung invites us to discover does not come from accumulating more external information. It does not come from a much deeper and courageous process, that of confronting our shadows, those parts of us that we prefer to ignore, repress, or deny. It is there, in this inner darkness, where we paradoxically find the brightest light. When Jung spoke of shadows, he was not referring to something negative that we must eliminate, but to unrecognized aspects of our personality that, when integrated, offer us a more complete vision of who we are. Imagine that you have lived your entire life using only half of your potential, because the other half is hidden in the shadows. Wouldn't it be transformative to reclaim this lost part of yourself? There's a reason you feel exhausted at the end of the day, and it's not just because of the physical work he does. It's the exhaustion of living constantly divided, of keeping a mask to the world while repressing your true essence. Jung called this mask the persona. The social facade we build to function in society is not inherently negative, but when it becomes our only identity, we lose touch with our authentic being. Clarity begins when we dare to ask, who am I really? Beyond my social roles, beyond my titles, beyond what others expect of me. This question may seem simple, but answering it honestly requires extraordinary courage. Jung discovered that the unconscious is always trying to communicate with us, to guide us toward greater clarity. It does this through our dreams, intuitions, synchronicities, and those inexplicable sensations that we sometimes dismiss as nonsense. But each time we ignore these signs, our path becomes more confusing, more difficult to navigate. Think about it. How many times have you had a strong intuition that you ignored only to regret it later? Jung taught us that this intuition is not coincidence or superstition. It is your unconscious trying to illuminate your path with the clarity that already exists within you. The mental clarity that Jung proposes does not mean having all the answers. In fact, it's the opposite. It means being comfortable with uncertainty, with the mystery of life, but from a place of deep connection with yourself. This clarity allows you to distinguish between the external voices that distract and the inner voice that guides. When you achieve this clarity, something extraordinary happens. Decisions that once seemed impossible now become clear. The toxic people and situations that drained your energy begin to naturally move away from your life. Not because you have built walls around yourself, but because your energy no longer resonates with these types of experiences. Jung described this phenomenon as synchronicity, those seemingly casual but meaningful moments that seem to be perfectly orchestrated to guide you. When your inner clarity is pure, the outer world begins to reflect it in ways that would seem miraculous to those who do not understand this principle. But here's the hard part. To achieve this clarity, you must first be willing to face those parts of yourself that you have denied, those fears that you have avoided, those truths that you have ignored because they are uncomfortable. Jung was emphatic on this. There are no shortcuts on the path to self-knowledge. You must be willing to go into the darkness to find the light. Many of us live in a state of constant distraction, precisely to avoid this encounter with ourselves. We prefer noise, incessant activity, anything that keeps us from that silence in which our truth could emerge. But Jung reminds us that this continuous avoidance has an enormous cost, moving us further and further away from our authenticity, our clarity, and, therefore, our enlightened path. Have you ever wondered why you sometimes feel lost, as if you were living someone else's life? It's because you've allowed external expectations to cloud your inner clarity. Jung called this living an alienated life, existing based on what others expect of you, rather than what your soul truly yearns for. The good news is that at any time you can choose to reconnect with your truth. No matter how long you have spent disconnected from it, your authentic being, yourself, as Jung called it, is always there, patiently waiting for you to rediscover it. This process begins with a simple but powerful decision: to listen to yourself, to pay attention to those bodily sensations, those emotions that arise in certain contexts, those recurring thoughts that seem to want to say something important. Jung taught that the body and emotions are bridges to the unconscious, to this deep wisdom that already resides within you. When you start listening to yourself, you discover something surprising. The answers you were looking for outside were already inside you. I didn't need more information, more advice, more external opinions. He needed silence, presence, and the courage to trust his own voice. Jung described this process as individuation, the path through which you become a complete, integrated individual who does not live fragmented between what you want to be and what others expect you to be. This path is neither easy nor quick, but it is infinitely rewarding. Think about the people you admire, the ones who seem to move through life with a clear direction and a defined purpose. What you see in them is not coincidence or luck. It is the result of this inner work, this constant search for clarity. They have learned to distinguish between external noise and their inner truth. And it is this distinction that lights your path. Jung insisted that each of us has a unique purpose, a specific contribution to make to the world. You will not find this purpose by following prefabricated paths or fulfilling other people's expectations. You will find it when you dare to listen to that inner voice that has guided you forever. Although sometimes I chose to ignore it, when you finally find this clarity, your energy changes. You no longer feel exhausted at the end of the day because you are no longer wasting your vitality on maintaining appearances or living lives that don't belong to you. Instead, you experience a sense of fulfillment, of flowing with life rather than constantly fighting against it. The relationships you build from this place of clarity are completely different. He no longer seeks others to fill his voids or solve his problems. He doesn't expect external validation because he has learned to validate himself. This allows you to establish more authentic, deeper, and more satisfying connections. Jung discovered that when a person achieves this clarity, their own presence becomes a light for others. Without trying, without proposing herself, she begins to inspire those around her, simply by being who she is. This is perhaps the most beautiful manifestation of what it means to have an enlightened path. You become a beacon for others who are also seeking their own path. But how do you begin this journey to inner clarity? Jung offered us several tools, including attention to dreams, reflective writing, dialogue with our different internal parts, conscious meditation, and, above all, the cultivation of an attitude of genuine curiosity towards our inner world. Start by creating spaces of silence in your life, times when you can step away from the outside noise and simply be with yourself. It can be uncomfortable at first, especially if you've spent a lot of time avoiding this encounter. But persist in this silence. The voices that really matter, those of your intuition, your inner wisdom, begin to become clearer. Observe your automatic reactions, those moments when you respond without thinking, driven by unconscious patterns. Jung taught us that these reactions are windows into our unintegrated parts. Every time you find yourself reacting disproportionately to a situation, ask yourself, what is this reaction trying to communicate to me? What part of me needs to be seen and heard? Pay attention to your dreams. Jung considered dreams as direct messages from the unconscious, attempts by our psyche to balance itself and to show us aspects of ourselves that we ignore when awake. You don't need to become an expert in dream interpretation. Simply start remembering them, writing them down, noticing recurring patterns and symbols. Cultivate relationships that honor your authenticity. Surround yourself with people who encourage you to be who you really are, not those who try to mold you according to their expectations. Jung observed that our closest relationships are mirrors of our inner world. If you constantly find yourself in relationships where you can't be yourself, it's a sign that there is inner work you need to do. And above all, practice compassion towards yourself in this process. Clarity does not come suddenly as an instant revelation, although it can sometimes manifest itself that way. It is usually a path of small discoveries, of advances and setbacks, of moments of light followed by periods of confusion. Jung reminded us that this is not a linear process, but a spiral one. We revisit the same themes over and over, but each time from a deeper level of understanding. When you begin to live from this inner clarity, synchronicities multiply. Those magical moments when it seems like the universe conspires in your favor become more frequent, not because the outside world has changed, but because your inner world is more aligned, more coherent. Jung described these synchronicities as manifestations of a unifying principle that connects our psyche with the material world. There is something deeply liberating about realizing that you don't need to seek constant approval from others to validate your path. That external opinions, although they can be considered, do not have to determine your decisions. Jung invites us to develop an internal center of gravity, a compass that guides us even in moments of greatest uncertainty. This clarity does not mean you will never feel confusion or doubt again. It means that you have developed a different relationship with these states. They no longer scare him, they no longer paralyze him. You see them as a natural part of the growth process, as invitations to deepen your self-knowledge even further. Jung discovered that when a person achieves this inner clarity, their decisions fundamentally change. They are no longer taken from fear, lack, or the need for approval, but from a place of inner abundance, of trust in one's own wisdom. And these decisions, even if they are not always understood by others, have a special quality. They resonate with your deepest being. Think about the important decisions you have made in your life. How many of them were really yours, born from your inner clarity? And how many were influenced by external pressure, by what they were supposed to do? It's not too late to reconnect with your inner compass, to start making decisions that truly light your path. Today's society values speed, constant productivity, non-stop work. Jung reminded us that true clarity requires moments of pause, of reflection, of connection with our inner world. In these hyperactive times, giving yourself permission to stop and listen can be one of the most revolutionary and transformative acts. Have you noticed how some people seem to live in constant conflict while others move through life with a kind of natural grace? Jung observed that this difference does not depend so much on external circumstances as on the relationship that each individual has developed with their inner world. Those who have cultivated inner clarity seem to dance with life instead of fighting it. When your clarity is pure, you begin to attract people and situations that resonate with your true essence. You no longer need to chase opportunities or force relationships, because what is aligned with your purpose seems to find you naturally. Jung called this the principle of synchronicity, this mysterious correspondence between your psychic world and external events. This clarity also allows you to see others more clearly. Without the projections and distortions that once clouded your perception, you can recognize both light and shadow in those around you. This does not lead you to judge them, but to understand them with greater depth and compassion, because you have learned to do the same with yourself. Jung taught us that each of us carries a unique potential within, a seed that seeks to manifest itself in the world. When we live without clarity, this seed remains dormant or develops in a distorted way. But when we illuminate our path with the light of self-awareness, we create the perfect conditions for it to bloom in all its magnitude. Imagine being able to look back at the end of your life and know with absolute certainty that you lived your own path. Not what others outlined for you, not what felt safest or most acceptable, but what resonated deeply with your essential being. This is the promise of clarity that Jung invites us to discover. The process of lighting your path doesn't have to be lonely. Jung created the concept of the collective unconscious, precisely to show us that, although each journey is unique, we are all connected on a deep level. When you become enlightened, you contribute to the enlightenment of all humanity. Your personal clarity has an impact that goes far beyond yourself. The inner clarity that Jung proposes is not a permanent state that you achieve once and forever. It's more of a constant practice, a daily commitment to your truth, to your authenticity. There will be days when you feel perfectly aligned and others when the fog seems to return. The important thing is not to avoid these moments of confusion, but to develop the ability to repeatedly return to your center. One of the biggest obstacles on this path is fear. Fear of what you will discover if you go inside. Fear of disappointing others if you follow your truth. Fear of making a mistake if you trust your intuition. Jung taught us that these fears are natural, but they must not become our guides. Clarity lies precisely on the other side of those fears that keep us stagnant. How many times have you ignored that inner voice that whispered that something wasn't right, that you needed a change, that there was another path for you? Jung noted that these intuitions are neither casual nor irrelevant. They are messages from yourself, trying to guide you to a fuller life, more aligned with your essence. The clarity we seek is not found in the future. It is not something we should pursue or conquer. It is here now, available right now. It just requires that you stop, that you breathe, that you pay attention to what you already know deep within your being, but that perhaps you have been ignoring out of convenience, out of fear, or out of habit. When you begin to live from this clarity, your relationship with time changes. You no longer feel like you are constantly running, trying to reach an imaginary future where you will finally be happy. Instead, you discover the fullness available in the present moment because you are living in alignment with your deepest truth. Jung reminded us that the body is a fundamental ally in this process. Our physical sensations, these contractions in the stomach, this lightness in the chest, this tension in the jaw, are signs that tell us when we are in alignment or out of alignment with our truth. Learning to listen to the body's wisdom is an essential part of the path to clarity. There is a transformative power in daring to be who you really are, without excuses, without explanations. Jung called this living from the self, allowing your most authentic essence to express itself through you, without the distortions of the ego or social demands. This is not an act of rebellion or selfishness, but of deep respect for the life that seeks to manifest itself through you. Inner clarity has a domino effect in every area of your life. Your relationships become more authentic because you no longer need to pretend to be someone you are not. Your work aligns more with your purpose because you make decisions from your center and not from your fears. Your health improves because you no longer live in constant internal contradiction, which Jung recognized as a fundamental source of stress and illness. What would happen if for one day, just one day, you allowed yourself to live completely from your truth, without worrying about what others think, without trying to fit in, without following automatic patterns that no longer serve you? Jung suggested experiments like this as a way to reconnect with our authenticity, with that clarity that has always been there waiting to be rediscovered. You may wonder if this path to clarity will mean missing out on important relationships or valuable opportunities. Jung observed the opposite. When you dare to be authentic, you attract deeper, more meaningful connections. What you lose are relationships based on false expectations, and what you gain are bonds based on truth and mutual respect. The clarity that Jung invites us to cultivate is neither cold nor calculating. It is imbued with a deep love for oneself, for others, for life in all its manifestations. It is a love that is not born from lack or need, but from the fullness of being who you really are and allowing others to be who they really are. You realize the gift you are denying yourself when you choose to live in confusion, when you allow others to dictate your path, when you ignore that inner wisdom that has always been guiding you. Jung reminds us that each of us has a unique potential that is waiting to manifest, but that it can only do so when we create the right conditions. And the first of these conditions is inner clarity. The path to this clarity is not a destination, it is an ongoing journey. There will be times when you feel lost, confused, insecure. Jung taught us to see these moments not as failures, but as opportunities to deepen our self-knowledge even further. Every confusion can become a door to greater clarity if we are willing to walk through it consciously. If there's one thing I can invite you to do today, right now, it's to stop for a moment. Breathe deeply. Ask yourself, what do I really want? What is my intuition telling me? Where would she guide me if I allowed myself to listen to her without fear? This simple act of conscious attention is the first step towards that clarity that lights your path. Jung discovered that when a person begins to live from their authenticity, from that inner clarity, they become an inspiring force for those around them. Not because you try to change others or impose your vision on them, but because your mere presence reminds them of the possibility of a fuller, more aligned, truer life. I know this message resonated with something inside you. I can feel it. There is a part of you that recognizes this truth, that longs for this clarity, that is ready to take this step toward a more authentic and fulfilling life. Jung assured us that this resonance is not a coincidence. It is yourself recognizing your own path. At the end of the day, the choice is simple but profound. You will continue to look outside for answers when the clarity you need is already within you. You will continue to live up to the expectations of others when your own being is waiting to be discovered and expressed. Will you settle for a borrowed path when your one and only bright one is waiting for you to dare to walk it? Carl Jung dedicated his life to showing us that true transformation comes not from changing the outer world, but from illuminating our inner world. And when we do, when we dare to face our shadows and embrace our light, something magical happens. The path lights up before us, step by step, revealing possibilities that we could not even imagine before. If this message has touched something within you, if it has awakened a spark of recognition or a longing for greater clarity, I invite you to share it. Share with those who are also seeking their path, who need this reminder that the light they seek is already within them. Together we can create a community of people committed to living from their truth, illuminating not only their own paths, but also those around them. Let me know in the comments what part of this message resonated with you the most. What clarity are you seeking in your life right now, or what step are you committed to taking today toward greater authenticity? Your experience is not only valuable to me, but also to all those, like you, who are on this journey of self-discovery. And if you are not yet part of this community, I invite you to subscribe and turn on notifications so that we can continue exploring together these profound truths that have the power to transform not only our lives, individuals, but also our collective world. Remember, when your clarity is pure, your path lights up. And this illuminated path not only guides you, but becomes a beacon for all those who are seeking their own light. Thank you for being here, for listening, and above all for daring to seek this clarity that already lives within you.